Chief Executive Officer of Derana, to share the insights on how Derana became the #1 TV channel in Sri Lanka. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, first of all, let me thank Denzel for inviting me for this. And then also let me wish marketing guru Philip Kotler on his birthday. Actually, it was Philip Kotler who actually got us, long time ago, got us interested in the subject of marketing. And going back a long way, I can remember I started in sales, and then there was this marketing examinations, and only 4 of us were there. Myself, Andru Tennakon, who was ex-captain of cricket in Sri Lanka, then Riza Samsudeen and Janaka Gunawardhan, all of us from sales. Andru was in Ceylon Tobacco at that time, who started classes in Oxford. I'm just revealing my age by telling these things, I think. And that time it was IM. It wasn't even CIM, because Institute of Marketing hadn't got its charter at that time. And the recommended text for the first subject, Principles of Marketing, was Principles of Marketing, first edition by Philip Kotler. And I can still remember his definition of marketing at that time. I know Philip Kotler keeps himself updated and updates. There had been so many editions after that, and the definition also has changed. So I can still remember the definition was identifying consumer needs and delivering the desired satisfaction by means of the product and whole cluster of things associated with creating, delivering, and finally consuming it. So now I think he has modified it to anticipating consumer needs, which is right. And so actually everything in that book was like the Bible. It was the Bible of marketing. And I don't have much time today, but let me speak about, I think she told that, how Derana became #1. Yes, I will touch on that. But then there are a few other things that I have to share with you. I have a small piece of paper, which I just noted down a few things, right? And, okay, the thing is this. First, let me start with the media thing, as she said. You see, a lot of misunderstanding about traditional media, and especially television, the electronic media. People watch, for example, Netflix and then compare with the local traditional media. Netflix, in media, especially in television, in the box that you see in front of you, there are different platforms. We belong, for example, Derana belongs to what you call direct to home, free to air television. So the target audience, a lot of people misunderstand this. The target audience for direct to home, free to air television is the family. Whereas if you take, for example, Netflix is a OTT platform. OTT platform belong to the category called VOD, video on demand. And if you carefully look at those things, you can see, if you carefully look at what Netflix is carrying on their platform, you can see a pre-warning for every film or every television show that you see. Whether it's 18 plus, whether it's 13 plus, whether it's PG, parental guidance, all that is, whether there's coarse language, whether there's violence, all those warnings are there. So that's because that's a video on demand platform. Whereas our platform is targeted towards the family, and family is when it comes to the family, it depends on the cultures, the norms of those countries, right? And say for example, in the West, you can kiss in public, but you can't piss in public. In our countries, you can piss in public, but you can't kiss in public. Right? That's part of the culture. So culture is something, according to Kotler himself. Culture, I can't. At that time I could say it by heart, but then his definition of culture was, some total of norms, mores, laws, whatever that has been passed from generation to generation, and it keeps changing gradually. Nobody can change culture, radically. You can change culture gradually. Gradually, things may be changing, but when you say gradually, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years to for the culture to change. If you take, some of our values, some of our traditions, some of our norms are actually partly Victorian. It has come from, some of the. For example, if you take, Salalini Sandeshe, for example. So it was written by a Buddhist priest, right? Totagamuwe Rahula, right? And she says about the female body. Sisivana Uwana, Ingasunga Gata Hakimitina, Nisi Pululukula, Riyasakamini, Pisaradana. Now, at that time, during the Kote era, there's a Buddhist priest who's writing, and according to that language, he's describing according to the language of the times, he's describing the human body, the female beauty, or whatever, sexy, whatever. And there was the king didn't call him and put him in jail or something like that, because that was according to the Buddhist culture at that time, based on Lord Buddha's preachings, right? Because Lord Buddha's most liberal teacher, the only religious teacher who said, just because I say, don't do it, you try it for yourself. So that was kind of liberal religious teaching that Lord Buddha had. So all other religions have what you call rules and laws, So all other religions, you are said not to do it. But Lord Buddha doesn't say not to do it. He says, if you do this, Ketupala, if you do this, this will happen, right? So that's the part of what I'm referring to is the culture at that time. It has changed we have gone through the Victorian era. So Victorian era was the time of ladies and gentlemen, right? And people who from top to bottom. And we were at that time having a liberal culture, but then through the Victorian age, we had changed it to being more conservative. The Suddhas took our culture and went there and became more, liberal, right? So that's how it works, but culture cannot be changed radically. So anyway, cultural values, coming back to television. So we had at that time, our story, to cut a long story short, I don't have much time, but let me start with, I had actually in my life, having worked in so many places, marketing just 2 organizations. Before that, I was in sales. Elephant House and Derana. So let me touch on a few examples and few strategies and tactics that I managed to adopt. Elephant House, when I started, I was the first brand manager in a 150-year-old company. You won't believe, right? Before that was sales. So thanks to Jaya Javadana's open economy, at least there was a subject called marketing that came into play. And just imagine becoming the first brand manager in a 150-year-old company. So I was in sales, and when John Keys took over Elephant House, there was so much of labor issues. So they didn't want to take anybody from outside. Luckily for me, so they looked into someone with some kind of marketing qualification in the company, in the sales department, and I was the only one. So they brought me as the first brand manager in the 150-year-old company. And then at that time, Coca-Cola was at its peak. They had 80% market share. Elephant House had 20% market share. And first thing we did was, obviously, we have to do some research to find out what has happened. Why are we 20%? Why are they 80%? This is, a category called carbonate. That's how worldwide it's looked at as a category called carbonated soft drinks, CSDs, right? So we did some research. I just can't remember the name of the company at that time. I think it was Ogmark Smart. I think it was Harsha's company. I can't remember. Which later became Nielsen's, right? And they did some research. Of course, quantitative research we had 20%, they had 80%. So they did some qualitative research. And I can remember their presentation and the final words in that presentation. It said like this: no young person will want to get caught dead with a bottle of Elephant brand. That was the final. So basically what they were trying to say, young people don't count with us anymore. It was a funeral brand. The brand was a funeral brand. It was used in funerals. I think young people will not remember, but some of you who are old enough will remember. It was just like Nescafe now. It was only served in funerals because there was enough quantity in it. So we did some more, blind tests, qualitative research. Research is a very important factor in marketing. And then through blind tests and research that we did, we found out that the co-product was acceptable, and even sometimes the young people preferred the product that is inside the bottle. What they didn't prefer, what they didn't like was to be seen with the bottle, to be seen. So that's what the research said. The young people don't want to be seen dead with a bottle of Elephant brand. So then we found out that, the reason was the image problem, brand image problem. So we decided that we need to change the bottle, because we thought the bottle was the thing, Coca-Cola was a hip bottle, which could have been, you can see with, to be seen with the bottle, you like to be seen. Then again, we had to go back to square one, because the company said, the management said, if you want to, because we had millions and millions of bottles deposited in the market. So the company said, you will have to sell the company to buy those bottles back. So no change in bottles, you can't change the bottles. So that was the challenge. We had to change the image without changing the packaging. I mean the basic packaging, the bottle. We could have changed the label. So we just changed the label and then started off by positioning each brand. We had a strength, we had so many brands, and another important factor in this. And finally, to cut a long story short, we managed to become number one by the year something like, if I remember right, it was 1996. In about 4 to 5 years, from 20%, we almost reached 50%. I can remember finally we had 49%. And that was a case in itself, because I can remember a certain group of students came from University of Boston to study this, because for the first time in the world, in the CSD market, local brand has overtaken either Coke or Pepsi. Only one other case before, that was in India. When India was a closed economy, they didn't have Coke and Pepsi. They had their own local brands, Thumbs Up and Campa Cola. But when India opened up in 1992, when Coke and Pepsi came into the market, they quickly gobbled up those companies, right? So this was a case in the world where the local CSD brand has become a leader. So how we did it? To cut a long story short, we had so many brands that were, the co-product was acceptable, the image wasn't. So we had to start positioning these products, positioning these brands separately. And what we saw was, at that time, Coke, Sprite and Fanta, those were the three brands that they had, were mostly involved in their visuals, in their visual mnemonics. They were mostly involved with sports and music. And of course, sports and music mostly. So what we did was, we like fighting one soldier with so many soldiers. We had several separate brands for sports, separate for music, and we positioned the brands like that. For example, sports, we had a brand called Lemonade. I think still there. It was a clear drink, so it was looked upon as more healthy. And of course, yes, sports, music and food, right? Accompaniment with food. So for sports, we had a Lemonade. For music and youth, we positioned cream soda alongside. And with food, we positioned EGB. At that time, it was ginger beer. So to make it hip, we converted the brand to EGB. And because one reason was EGB was the only brand, only carbonate soft drinks, even now, right now in the Sri Lankan market, which is made from natural ingredients. It's made from natural ginger. So, and the other very important thing was, in this, once we decided on the positioning for these brands, the most important thing that we did was, we had what is the advantage that a local brand has against a multinational? One thing is being able to use local insight. Local insight is very important. Whereas multinationals are restricted in using local insights, because they have to go with their global positioning and basically global advertising strategies. So, very important for you, if you are running local brands, to use local insights. So, one advantage that we had was that. The other thing is the decision making, the quick decision making that we can do as local brands. Less red tape, because if you are in the multinational company, you have to get permission from your head office and from there, and so many. By the time you are in the front line, the enemy is aiming their weapon at you, you are aiming your weapon at the enemy. And one advantage that you have, you can press the trigger. They have to get permission from the headquarters to press the trigger. By the time they get permission, they are dead. So those are the advantages that local brands have. And so, to cut a long story short, we use local insights. If you remember some of those old advertisements, I have no time to show them. Everything has used local insight. If you take, for example, orange barley. Orange barley, the positioning is nostalgia, right? nostalgia is a fantastic positioning to have, and only brand that could have had nostalgia as the positioning, because that used to be the generic name for soft drinks. And if you remember the whole Orange Barley advertisement, it's all nostalgia about your home back, your sister, your home, the village. Another that was a local insight was used. The insight that we used. One day we noticed that during Sinhala New Year time, my passport during Sinhala New Year time, Colombo became, even right now, Colombo becomes empty. How is it that Colombo is empty during Sinhala New Year time? Any other public holiday, it's not empty. There are people in Colombo, but Sinhala New Year, Colombo is empty. Why is it empty? Because people have gone back to their hometowns, villages. So what is the local insight? That everybody in the city are actually from the 70-80% people are actually from the villages, right? So your thought about where you came from, going back home, those are nostalgic feelings. So that was the local insight that we use. It's just an example of local insights. Since I'm running out of time, just to touch on another thing, that you're like young people, you all be taking over companies, maybe some of you will be taking over the country. Just to touch on one very, very close thing, something that is close to my heart, haven't been able to do it, is internal marketing for this country. Because internal marketing is not what most people think. Say, for example, you take sector by sector. One thing is the general internal marketing for people's change of thought process. If you take the polity, if you take the general public, what they expect from politicians are quick fixes and instant gratifications. No country will develop with people like that. So politicians will come into power and try to cater to, because they want to win the next elections. So you cannot develop a country like that. So to change the people's thinking, it's all internal marketing. So maybe you come into a position of power. Unfortunately, marketing in this country, I was jokingly tell Slim also that they haven't been able to marketing in this country. It's marketing is not for the students to study marketing, but it's for the authorities to consider marketing as an important subject area in this country. Take, for example, your A-levels doesn't have marketing as a subject. Unfortunately, it's just a module in the business management subject. But A-levels has bloody media, useless. I'm telling you. I'm sorry for using that word, because media is, how many jobs do you have in the media, in the traditional media? Not even 100 for a year. But over 20-30,000 students study media in A-levels because they think, and if you ask them, 90% of them wants to become Chatura or somebody in front of the camera. Nobody wants to actually do media. So things are so bad. And what really happens is, 100 of them will end up in media. If there are 20,000, 19,900 students will go out with some areas with media. So then they have another media, social media, and they will start regarding the media with the social media. That's all. So basically, I can still remember, we had actually in a IM, of course, later on when we did part 2 here, it was EIM. They have a pure subjects. I don't know. It's all mixed up. So there's a subject called behavioral aspects of marketing. And in that, there was this definition of actually frustration, a serious discrepancy between the level of aspiration and the level of achievement. So what happens is, you have 20,000 students doing A-levels, marketing for A-levels, wanting to become media people. 100 people become media people, 19,900 people. Their level of achievement is way behind their level of aspiration because they want to become media people. They all get frustrated. And the other corner of frustration, according to behavioral aspects of marketing, is paranoia. So you become paranoid, you get onto the streets and start shouting and maybe start getting angry and fighting with other people. So that's the level of frustration that you can end up with. So coming back, I think people should lobby for marketing to become a subject in A-levels because there are not only there are enough vacancies, and according to Mr. Philip Kotler, one of his sayings long time ago, I remember having read it, I don't know, in an article or something. At that time, the poor countries were called third world countries. And he says, the fact that some of the countries are third world is for just one reason, the lack of marketing. So if there is enough marketing, understanding of marketing, the biggest problem in our country, the economic problem, is not robbing or corruption, or those are actually the reason. If the country is a company, our problem is our top line is not enough. Just trying to cut short on a middle line, thinking that our bottom line will increase, will not work. So we need marketing. We have very few brands, although we are one of the biggest tea exporters in the world. Hats off to Dilma, right? Very few other brands that have made it to the world. We still send tea as just an example, as a bulk item. Tourism, we don't have. We have, the real reason behind internal marketing is to get the product ready. So our tourism product just not only consists of beaches, not only consists of hotels, not only consists of trails, not only consists of mountains, it also consists of people and attitude towards the tourist. Yes, we have, from a culture, we have very friendly people, but we also have, for example, have we marketed towards the three-wheel drivers, for example, convince them, did we have a campaign to convince them that don't charge extra from the tourists especially? Because if you do, he will go and give that message to his colleagues in those countries, and less tourists will be arriving in this country, and you will be the final loser. So don't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. That's a campaign by itself to get the tourism product ready. I'm just giving you one example. So that's it. So to remain, again, just to touch my point, countries are not third world. They are third world just because it lacks marketing. Thank you so much. I hope I have been of some use to you. Thank you for inviting me once again. Thank you. I don't think we have time for questions. Do you have? Then it's okay. If you have questions, then yeah, I can answer them. at least about media or whatever. You must be having questions.
I love to ask this question. So when we are just focusing to media, apart from TV commercials and media buying, purchasing thing, I would like to ask, what is the most success and turning point of TV Derana, whether it's programs or news or or teledramas, so what kind of content into the context is a success point of TV Derana?
Yeah, to answer a question, see, it's a very complicated thing, but it's like this. Have you heard of Pareto principle? Pareto principle? The Pareto. Have you heard? Pareto is I think, Italian economist who found out that anything in this world is 80-20. So, to 20%, if you identify 20% of your products that give you 80% of the turnover and focus on it, it will work. So, yeah, again, mostly it's news and teledramas that bring us 80% of the turnover. And by making them, again, local insights. You see, in this world of creativity, especially when it comes to audiovisual films and teledrama and all that, there are basically two types. One I call the Panditaya type, the type of things that which appeal to the academia, the award-winning type, the jury type. Two types. One type of drama pleases the juries, those who sit and give awards. A different type of drama pleases the general public. So it's again local insight. Our taste of entertainment has always been based on the Navanalu Rasa, if you have heard it, right? So Navanalu Rasa is based on Bhava, right? It's based on the rasas. I don't know. If you have done Sinhala Sahitya, you will know. So we based our dramas on Navanalu Rasa. It's what you call, in Sinhala, there's a Bhava Tisha. There's always emotions, the slice of life, things like that in the dramas, and we make sure that it's suitable to be watched by the family. It doesn't, because our primary audience is on television. Whatever we get on social media, on YouTube and all that, is just a bonus. We don't target our dramas to the social media audience. It's targeted at the television audience. So our dramas are like, number one drama is ours, even right now, according to now the ratings are SRL, but before that it was Kanta Media. So whatever, for a long time, for the last 2-3 years, in Sri Lanka, the number one drama, I don't think some of you even wouldn't have heard. It's called a drama called Iskoli. So that's the drama that is number one in ratings. So it's based on these local insights, local values, the Navanalu Rasa, the Karuna Rasa basically. So Karuna Rasa, the Sthai Bhava is Shoka, sadness and all that, you have people crying, and then you become, that's the most important Rasa, Karuna Rasa. You become soft in heart, you become a human being. So that kind of thing. And we also attend world markets for television like MIPCOM, and we know what is happening in the rest of the world, how they have categorized. Dramas have different categories. You have soap operas, you have short series, you have all kinds. So you have, basically we follow the Boston metrics even for dramas. You have the cash cows. So people say, especially in the social media, Tama make ivara nadda. I make a Tama yanne. But that's a cash cow. Who the hell gives up the cash? No, we go, basically it's a product portfolio planning. You have the Boston, Boston metrics, right? So who the hell gives up on cash cows? We don't. So you have problem children, yes. You might try to, You go for the classic product life cycle strategy. If it's in the decline, you try to relaunch. If it doesn't work, yes, you take it off, launch a new product. Basic, I don't think any channel in this country adopts basically all these strategies. It's just sweep ticket strategy. You know, we blindly pull something out. If you're lucky, it works. No, we go by basically it's all theory. So that's how it has worked. You know, we started very small. We didn't have resources. Another business strategy we adopted was no money was pulled out. Everything was plowed back for years and years to build up the channel. We started very small. We had a camera and people here, we had a camera and maybe we didn't have a machine to play the commercials even when we started. We started small, only in Colombo, but we expanded by plowing back the profits for years and years. Of course, right now we are number one. Okay, thank you.
I now invite Professor Nalina Besekara, Professor in Marketing in the Department of Marketing Management of the Faculty of Management Studies of the Open University of Sri Lanka and the official representative of Kotler Impact in Sri Lanka and Maldives and the Managing Director, Dio Consultancy and Advisory, Mr. Densil Pereira, to stage to present the token of appreciation.